Welcome to EnigmaCast, everyone, and happy holidays. Merry Christmas. You know how we do. I'm in the full-on Christmas spirit tonight. I'm literally wearing my Hanging with the Gnomies ugly Christmas sweater. I was going to wear my hat, but couldn't find it. So, I just feel like I wanted to get into that Christmas cheer, y'all, and have a good time. So, welcome to EnigmaCast. We got a good show for everybody tonight, and we're going to get right into it in a second. I just got a couple of announcements I'd like to make. One, we are streaming right now on Rumble and on YouTube. And also, YouTube has implemented a new function that I am not very familiar with. And it is basically a vertical stream as well. And it doesn't give me a lot of options to, configure that stream or whatever. So if you're watching this vertically and something's off, just let me know in the comments. So the next episode, so I'll be able to fix that right now, man. We'll give everybody a chance to sync it up in here. Check over here. Rumble, you're looking good. YouTube, you're looking good. Amber, how you doing? Check out my sweater, Amber. Hanging with the Gnomies, everybody. So that's my ugly Christmas sweater. I actually love this sweater. It's fun. I like to wear it during the holidays. Only time I get to wear it. But anyways, guys, hope everybody's doing well. What's going on, Ash? Welcome. Give the chat a few seconds to kick in. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight, everybody, on Thursday night. Hope everybody up north is staying warm. I was talking to some people in in the channel, some other subscribers and followers. They were telling me how cold it was up there. So I hope you guys are digging in and staying warm on it. So anyways, guys, got a good show for you tonight. We are going to do a follow-up on last week's episode where we were talking about the Watchers from the Book of Enoch. And some of the feedback I got from people when they were reaching out to me, they were saying, like, what was the Nephilim? I was actually surprised. I didn't know. I mean, I thought, well, I shouldn't be that way. A lot of people don't know what the Nephilim are. And so they didn't understand what I was talking about in the Book of Watchers, where how these, the Book of Enoch, I apologize. They got a little bit lost on what I was referencing when I was talking about the Nephilim and what the Watchers actually did. So tonight, we're just going to piggyback off that, guys. We're going to get right into it. And we're going to talk about what the Nephilim are, right? I'll try to unpack it as best I can. If you got any questions during or after, throw them in the chat or throw them in the comments, and I will just get them as we go. So look, all right. The Nephilim are mentioned only twice in the Bible. They're mentioned in Genesis 6:4 and Numbers 13:33, right? That's the only two times they appear in the Bible. And neither chapter names any type of individual Nephilim whatsoever. However, I do have some names, and I'll get to that and tell you what their names really were as we get going along here. But they are basically described collectively now as mighty men of old. So when you're reading the Bible or you're reading anything and you see the term mighty men of old or men of renown, they're referring to the Nephilim. But the word Nephilim only appears twice in the Bible itself, okay? But they're talking about the same thing. That's important to remember. Genesis 6:4 and Numbers 13:33, right? And basically, they're the giants. That's the straight up way to just go ahead and simplify it to the lowest common denominator. Nephilim, men of renown, mighty men of old. They're all giants, right? And when you cross-reference that with the Book of Enoch, again, the Book of Enoch was taken out of the Bible. I don't know when. Some people will tell you it's at the Council of Messina, but it's in the Ethiopian Bible, which is 600 years older than the King James Bible. But the Book Enoch was removed, so they try to tell you that it's non-canonical, but it is canonical, 100%. And it's very extremely influential. The Book of Enoch was taken out of the Bible, but you can also find several passages in the Bible that reference the Book of Enoch. Make it make sense. And so what happened is that when the Watchers came down, they're the fallen angels, what we talked about last week. If you haven't seen last week's episode, just go through this or leave this video now. Go watch last week's episode, then come back and watch this video. Either one will make it make sense as we go, right? Now, the Watchers are the 200 angels that left the sons of God, sons of man, that left their post, right? And they came down, and they were led by Semjaza. We talked about him last week. He's going to be a key player in tonight's episode as well. He lusted for our women. Our women are beautiful. American chicks are beautiful. Earthly women are beautiful. This angel, one of them, they came down, they took them as wives. And when they took these women as wives, they had children. And these children they born were the Nephilim. The Nephilim are basically half angel, half human beings, right? And that was never, ever meant to happen. And so what happened is that these Nephilim, or basically I'm just going to refer to them as, this giant offspring themselves, they became tyrannical in their power. Their fathers were very proud of them. And I'll get to that in a second, man. All the fathers became very proud of them, right? And I don't want to jump too far ahead, but that just gives you the rough framework of what we're going to be talking to tonight, man. Now, from a biblical standpoint, giants are often, and I couldn't find any exceptions whatsoever, linked to the Nephilim lineage. We get named giants such as these now in the Bible. Now, these are what they call post-diluvian, or after the flood, basically, giants, right? These are their names, right? You have Ankh, who was the ancestor of Anakim, and then you had the sons of Ankh, right? Which was Ahim, Shesaiah, Talmel. Then you had Og, which was king of Bashan, Goliath of Gath, the most notable giant in there, but he also had some brothers, Lahim, brother of Goliath, and other Rephaim giants, right? I always have a hard time saying that word, man. But the Bible never explicitly calls these individuals Nephilim. I'm reading from my notes here because I want to make sure I get this right for you guys. But many scholars and theologians believe they represent post-flood Nephilim descendant bloodlines. So basically, they do. If you want to see these actual stories, the Book of Kings in the Bible talks about how they came into, when I think it was Jacob first came into the land, they encountered these giants. It was Og and all these other guys. They fought Ankh, all these other guys. They fought the giants. And then the most famous story in the Bible is David killing Goliath. But it doesn't tell you that Goliath had like 3 brothers, right? And those 3 brothers seeked revenge on David. And David had mighty men with him. That's a whole nother thing that we should get into. There's a good book back there. It's covered up right now for the Christmas decorations that get into it. But David had mighty men, the mighty men of David. David had a little squad of Nephilim himself, right? And some of them were actually half man, half lion. It's true. I'm not making this up. The Bible, they went very hard to take the supernatural aspects out of the Bible, and I think that they're regretting that now, and they probably should start trying to put it back. But they had amazing things going on in the Bible as well. But David had mighty men himself, right? And he had his own little crew of Nephilim, right? And his little crew went out and killed the other 3 brothers, or 4 brothers, I think it was, of, Goliath. But enough of that, man. That's a whole nother story. If you guys want me to get into that, dig into that, send me an email or just leave it in the comments, and I'll talk about David and his mighty men and how he had a group of little, little Nephilim soldiers with him as well. But if you really want to get into the depth and the names and what they did and who they were of the Nephilim, the first generation Nephilim that were the direct descendants from the Watchers and the mating of earthly women, you have to read this book called the Book of Giants. Now, the Book of Giants is actually one of the most important texts when it comes to the named Nephilim related figures. Now, the Book of Giants is a Jewish apocalyptic text closely related to Enoch, right? Fragments of this book were actually found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, and versions have survived in Manichaean traditions. I need to work on my accents there, right? But it has survived, right? To go in there and look at it. And the Book of Giants is an excellent read. Me and Uncle Jay from Uncle Jay's Urban Legends, we actually did an episode specifically on the Book of Giants. If you're interested in that, go back to the EnigmaCast archives, jump in there and take a look, and you can have at it as well. But right now, we're going to dig into it right now because the Book of Giants is the only place where you'll actually find the names of Nephilim. It is. It's the only place you'll find them, right? And you can only really find about 5 of them. Now, some people will say there's 6 or 7. And the other two, that the sixth and seventh one that they name, has way too much other, debate going back and forth. So I kind of just left it out. Just leave a little breadcrumbs for you to follow. You can go in there and, take a look at that on your own. Sorry, I had this little pop up here. You can take a look at it on your own. It's a great book. But tonight we're going to talk about the 5 giants that were actually named in the Book of Giants, right? It's a great read, right? And before I lead into the Book of Giants, I need to tell you that the Book of Giants does not ever specifically call them Nephilim, right? Explicitly, but it clearly identifies them as the giant offspring of the Watchers. I know I get some chat lawyers, I get some theologians that want to come in here and go hard at me, right? It doesn't. Yes, you're correct. The Book of Giants never refers to them as Nephilim, but it says that they are the giant offspring of the Watchers. And if you go to the book of Genesis, it tells you that the giants were the offspring of the Watchers, were called Nephilim. So do some problem solving there. So anyways, let's get into this, right? So the 5 named giants that you will find in the Book of Giants are Ohya, Hahya, Mahway, Gilgamesh, but not that Gilgamesh that you're thinking about in the Sumerian tablets, but in the Sumerian tablets, that Gilgamesh claims that he's the reincarnation of this Gilgamesh that we're about to talk to, right? And you have this guy called Humbaba or Habayash, right? And some people actually will go on and try to tell you that he's actually Enkidu. I don't believe that. We're just going to call him Humbaba and Habash right now as we get into it. Those are the only 5 named Nephilim that you can find. Now, some people did reach out to me and say, hey, look, this book over here or this book over here. I looked at those books, I looked at those texts, but it can't be, trust me, bro. It has to be something related that I can string back to it. There was no text references on there. There was no, there's nothing I could tie into it. So I'm sorry. I only can talk about what I can defend, right? And so if you can find more credibility for me to trust those things, then again, throw them in the chat or throw them in the comments and I'll take a look at it. So let's get into this, right? I'm going to tell you who these 5 are, what they did, and then we'll talk about what happened to them, right? So Ohya, right? Ohya, also spelled, Hahhyah. The names back then must have been really hard to pronounce. He's the prominent one. He's actually what I would call the leader of the Nephilim at the time. And he's described as having terrifying dreams about destruction and judgment in the Book of Giants, right? We'll get to that in a second. But he's also the firstborn son of Semjaza, right? Samjaza, as you know, led the Angels' rebellion, the 200 that came down, the 20 groups of 10 that he brought down, the 20 captains that came down with him. He's his firstborn son. And either by hook or crook or just by hierarchy alone, he was the de facto leader of the Nephilim, right? The second one down there is Hahya, right? And he is actually Samjaza's second son, right? And again, in the Book of Giants, he starts experiencing these prophetic dreams as well of a coming flood, right? And him and his brother petition their father, and they try to have try to figure out what's going on. We'll dig into that in a second, man. Now you have Mahway. Now he's a giant messenger figure. He was reportedly supposed to be the fastest Nephilim there was. He has the ability, some people would even hint at, he had the ability of flight or space travel, that he could travel faster and farther than all the other Nephilim. That's why his name is mentioned in the Book of Giants, and I'll get into that in a second. Gilgamesh, right? Now, Gilgamesh is the second one, right? Now, all it is that he's mentioned here as a giant figure, not the heroic king of Mesopotamia or anything like that. But the Mesopotamian figure Gilgamesh that you see, who, becomes 2/3, Nephilim or mighty man, he claims that he's the reincarnation of this Gilgamesh, right? Totally different story. We'll get into that at another episode, right? And I'll tell you the reason why Gilgamesh is in here in a second as well. And Humbaba, right? Another giant figure, later known in the Epic of Gilgamesh as well. So that's why some people tend to believe that he was Enkidu, but it's not. And in my opinion, it's not Enkidu. It's something totally different. But anyways, those are the 5 that you have, right? Now, I'm going to break down to you exactly what goes on inside the Book of Giants, right? Now, the Book of Giants takes place in the antediluvian world. That's the age of, that's what they say, that reference they use when they talk about the time before the flood, right? And it expands on more context on what was going on, during Genesis. Now, keep in mind, Enoch was alive all throughout Genesis and alive all the way up till the flood. God took Enoch off the earth right before the flood happened. So Enoch is alive during all this stuff, right? Not all of Genesis. He's a 7th generation descendant from Adam, just letting you know, right? He was Methuselah's father. He was Noah's great-grandfather. So look, the story begins after the Watchers, right? Well, the story starts, right, in the Book of Giants, man. The Watchers, we talked about last week, the 200 giants that came down from, left their heavenly positions. Descend to earth. They were led by Semjaza. They violate the divine boundaries by taking human women as wives. We talked about that as well last week. And from these unions are born giant offsprings, being of immense size and strength, right? And this is often left, right? Extremely intelligent. These guys were very, very smart. The post-Diluvian Nephilim are not that smart. And when you lead into the giants that are found supposedly today, they have reverted back to, caveman status where they're not very intelligent at all, right? But the giants during the Book of Giants, the Nephilim back then, were extremely intelligent, right? They built cities. They dominated humanity. They consumed vast amount of resources, right? And eventually their hunger became unsatiable where man could no longer, take care of them. So they began to devour all the animals. They became cannibalistic, eating humans. And they finally started to turn on each other, and they began to eat each other as well. And the earth became so corrupted, so violent, so bloody, with bloodshed, that God decided to basically reboot the hard drive. Now, I'm going to throw a few things out here. If you read any of the Greek mythologies, the giants in there were always cannibals. So yeah, 100%, man. And I have a firm belief that there were some remnants of these things on the earth at the time still, and that they were talking about the same type of giants as well, how they were cannibals is doing it. But that's what they were, right? And during that time, that's where the earth global civilization took place. I've also spoken about the theory of Pangea, when all the continents of the earth was one continent. This was during Pangea, and the floodwaters that came out of the earth underneath it split the tectonic plates apart. And that's what caused everything to shift. That's when they tell you that that's when they try to tell you that the ark is made of gopher wood, and gopher wood only grows in Florida. That's correct. But when the ark was built, Florida wasn't where it is right now. It was somewhere completely different. The floodwaters split it apart. But these guys not only built civilizations, they had kingdoms, they had territories, but they also had these things called conclaves, right? And exact same time all this was going on, and this is very interesting in the Book of Giants, their fathers were creating, the Watchers and some Nephilim were creating animal-human hybrids, plant hybrids, fish hybrids, everything else. So this is when all the Fae was on the earth at this time, right? So you hear all these stories about, gnomes and all this other stuff or whatever, duendes, pugwudgies, what do you want to call them, fairies, centaurs, minotaurs, all that stuff. They were real. And when you see these ancient Mesopotamian, artworks, we talked about it before, where it has a man with eagle wings on a lion's body, that was real. That's what they saw, because that was what was walking around. So all kinds of manner of sin was going on. They were fighting each other. They were eating each other. They were eating humans. It was terrible, right? And so several of the giants, notably 2, Ohya and Hahya, Semjaza's sons, firstborn and secondborn, began to experience terrifying dreams, right? And in their dreams, they were no ordinary dreams. They were vivid dreams and about how something terrible was about to happen to them. And in one of the dreams, the one that got Ohya, the oldest brother, so upset is he had a vision in a dream of a massive stone tablet with a bunch of names written on it, dipped into water, and then it was pulled back out. Only a few names remained. And so that tells you right there, when you read that we know that some Nephilim survived the flood, and his dream was prophetic enough to tell you that not all the names on this tablet was going to be wiped out, right? I thought that was just very interesting right there, right? So him and his brother contact his father, right? And they're trying to interpret what was going on, right? So it also, too, in the Book of Giants, it always mentions that these watchers come down to talk to their sons. I don't know where these watchers are on the earth, but it says they come down. I don't know if they're coming down from tops of mountains. I don't know if they're coming down from wherever, but it says they came down and they talk. His father tells Ohya and his brother Mahway to call a conclave, right? And that basically is a meeting of all the leaders of the Nephilim, right? And he does. If you read the Book of Giants, not only did the Nephilim show up, but the leaders of the centaurs and like all these other crazy creatures it describes, they all show up and they have this great meeting. And again, the number is 200 too. Like 200 of them show up. That seems to be a prominent number throughout the series, right? And what they're doing is they tell them, say, hey, look, man, these are our dreams. This is what was going on, right? It's basically a freaking crisis meeting, right? Like all hands on deck, right? And they start talking about how they're having the waters coming in and all this other stuff's going on, about how they feel that they're about to be judged. And Ohya specifically says he's worried about this because out of all the Nephilim, he says he's the worst. Out of all of them, he says, I am the worst among us. So he's terrified, right? Like, so I can only imagine what this guy was up to, right? And they have this big kind of like crazy debate, actually. And some of the guys argue that the dreams are just symbolic warnings meant to inspire repentance, right? And I need you to remember that as we move along, right? Some of them, said, hey, look, this is just a warning that we need to stop these evil ways. Literally, this was going on, right? We need to stop these evil ways and we need to repent. And we already know that some of these creatures survived the flood, and I'm going to tell you why they survived in a minute. I don't know how they survived, I'm going to tell you why they survived, right? Others basically say, you know what, man, we are cooked. So there's nothing we can do here, man. We are done. We might as well just light the candle, burn this bad boy to the ground, man. There's nothing we can do, man. But either way, man, there was just basically arguing amongst themselves, right? To the conclave actually got violent. And they just said, you know what? Enough's enough. Nothing comes to conclusion. Then they leave. Then more and more of them start having these prophetic dreams about dying and getting wiped out. So they call a second conclave, right? And the second conclave, they come to back. Again, they're in still disagreement on what it is. Some people are saying, hey, look, man, we're done. Some people are saying like, hey, this is just, a warning for us to repent. Some people are saying like, hey, look, no, this is just, we can beat this. We can go to war with it, right? But this is where it becomes extremely interesting. They actually come to a census that, hey, look, we need to go and talk to Enoch and ask Enoch to interpret this message. And that is amazing because, again, it shows you the importance of Enoch throughout through everything in the back. He's God's scribe basically through our ancient times. So what they do is they send the third guy I told you about, Mahway. They send Mahway to talk to Enoch because it describes that Mahway had wings or the ability to fly or could do something, right? But also it's important to note that Enoch was just a man. That's all he was, but he was off limits. No one messed with Enoch. None of these guys did, right? They actually feared him, right? No one wanted to do it. But at a minimum, some people say that, oh, they didn't really fear him. Enoch was just, separated, or he was more powerful. We'll just come to an agreement that they at least acknowledged Enoch's authority, that he was somebody, special, right? So what happens is Mahway goes and he actually finds Enoch and he talks to Enoch. And he tells Enoch, hey, this is what's going on. Hey, you know what? We need your help. Can you pray, or you can do this? And surprisingly enough, Enoch knows how evil they are, but he still does it, right? So he prays, or he somehow, it's hard to interpret directly in the text. He either prayed or he communicated with or he communed with. Somehow he spoke directly to God. And that's important to notice because a lot of the other times in the Bible, it's rare when someone actually talks to God. But remember, God loved Enoch so much, he just took him at the end. He didn't die, right? And this is where God said to him. So it's like, so Enoch goes and says, hey, look, God, what's going on? And the God's like, this place has become a wicked place. These Nephilim creatures are abominations. They were never meant to, this is not meant to happen. And I'm sending the following things to happen. And I talked about it last week. He sent only 4 archangels. He sent Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, right? To go down. Uriel's job was, Michael came down. His job was to deal with the 200 watchers. Gabriel's job was specifically to deal with one watcher, Azazel, which I told you I'm 100% convinced he's actually buried in the outback in Australia. I think Uriel was sent down to let me rewind that. Michael was sent down to deal with the 200 watchers. Gabriel was sent down to deal with all the Nephilim. He was going to deal with all of them, right? Uriel was sent down, or Raphael, one or the other. I can't remember. I always get this mixed up. I want to say it was Uriel was sent down specifically to deal with Azazel. And Raphael was basically come down as the harbinger, the messenger to say, hey, look, this is what you've done. This is what you happened. And God tells Enoch, I'm going to wipe all this away with a flood. All the watchers are going to be chained until, the final days of judgment. And all the Nephilim are going to be killed. And not only are all these Nephilim going to be killed, they are forbidden from ever leaving the earth. They will be doomed to walk the earth forever without form and complete voidness, right? Now, hold on to that thought as we go, right? He says one last thing at the very bottom, though. He says, there's no hope for any of them, but if they repent, God literally says in the book of Giants, maybe. He put a maybe in there if they repent, right? So Enoch meets with Mahway, says, hey, look, man, you guys are done. You are doomed. There's nothing we can do about this. And go make your peace with it, right? Unless if you repent, however, maybe. So then Mahway, is the name Mahway? I think it's Mahway, yeah. Yeah. Mahway flies back, and they call the third conclave, the third and final conclave of the Nephilim happened, right? And so they show up, right? And he says, look, I spoke with Enoch, I spoke with the scribe, I spoke with the messenger. God has spoken. We are condemned. There's nothing we can do. It's crazy because for a bunch of tough guys, man, they get really, really, really serious when they're being told what was going on. He said, however, unless we repent, right? And then we might have a chance, but there's no guarantee. So some of the older, bigger giants in there were like, no, well, I'm not going out without a fight. This doesn't happen. If we band together, he's only sending 4. We can take them because our fathers are here and there's 200 of them, right? And this is where Gilgamesh comes into play, right? So Gilgamesh actually steps forward at this conclave and says, no, if God is sending those 4, we are done. There's nothing we can do. Like, this is literally what Gilgamesh tells him, right? There's nothing we can do if these guys are coming. We cannot stand against the sons of heaven. Or he gives them a title, man, that I had never read before. But he's basically saying, oh man, these are the 4 heaviest hitters that are out there, and there's nothing we can do to survive this, right? And then the other one, the last and final one, backs him up. Humbaba. Humbaba says the same thing. He's like, no, I'm going to make my peace with this, and I'm just going to ride it out, man. If he's sending those 4 down, we're cooked. How you doing, Robert? What's going on, chat? Hi, chat over there in Rumble. Sorry, boys. I'm over here just rolling through my script. Good to see you. Thanks for hanging out. Let's talk. I'm wearing my Hanging with the Nomies t-shirt, sweater right here, guys. So, so that's what he tells them, right? And that they're cooked, right? And so here's another strange event. Now, another strange event that talks about in the book of Giants, right? The exact same time that these Nephilim were having their conclaves, So were the Watchers. The Watchers were having the same dreams, but they didn't need Enoch to interpret them. They knew what was going on. And they were talking about how, trying to find a way, how can we, save our skins, basically. And there's not one. And here's a Ancient Enigma Files fun fact for you. In Uzbekistan, after this show, if you want to type it into Google, you can type into Uzbekistan. They have just completed, or it was recently completed, a golden-like pyramid over there that's massive. And at the top of that pyramid is a glass conference room with 200 chairs in it, with 200 chairs to go around it, right? Like a conference chair, right? There is no rhyme. And shocker, the United States of America, the U.S. paid like, $60 billion for it or something. We helped them with that. It doesn't shock anybody at this point right now. But they actually give no rhyme or reason why that structure was built, why it's so high up on the ground, why there's 200 chairs in there. But if you read, I want to say if you read in the Bible about Luke, it talks about in the end times, these things coming out of the heavens that are so scary that it actually, men start having heart attacks, when they see them come into the earth. That's just one theory, that the Nephilim that the Watchers are about to return, which I don't believe that at all. They're totally bound. Or that a fresh group of Watchers are about to turn, and that they're the ones that are going to, do something over there. I don't really know. I don't want to, get too deep into that rabbit hole. I haven't really had a lot of chance to think about it or read on it, but it's pretty amazing. And it's pretty, no shocker that the United States of America gave like $8 billion to do it. And it's in Uzbekistan, which most people couldn't even find on a map, but it's there. But anyway, so the Watchers, when they're doing their conclave, they know they're dead. They know they're cooked. They're just like, you know what, man, there's nothing we can do. We messed up. And you know what? It's time to reap what we sow. Now, they actually come down and say that, telling their sons, hey, we're sorry, but God's judgment is final. The Watcher, we're going to be bound into the earth until the days of judgment. And then we're going to, see how it goes from there. But they actually know that they're going to witness the death of all of their sons, all of the Nephilim. They're telling their Nephilim this, right? So these Watchers were in communication with their sons, right? And they're warning them, saying that, look, when you die, your physical bodies are going to be destroyed. But you're going to be stuck to this earth forever, right? And later Enochian traditions, or also other, biblical traditions, even when you go into other religions, like, I'll just say, Islam or whatever, they become the malevolent spirits on the earth, man. The Djinn, the demons, these are the disembodied Nephilim, right? According to these, scriptures, right? And so I thought that was interesting right there, because as you guys know or haven't known, I've had, some unpleasant shadow man experiences in my life, younger life, not anymore, thanks to Jesus. And I've been on a couple shows talking about it, and I've had other people who've experienced it as well. And the biblical hitman says that he 100% convinced that his was a disembodied Nephilim, right? And so, again, I don't want to spiral off in that direction too hard, but it's a great theory. Now, so then what happens? Flood shows up. Everything goes down exactly like it is. Enoch is taken off the earth. Methuselah dies. Noah shuts the door on the ark. And the floods happen, right? Now, you got to remember that God won't. God has showed time and time again that he won't destroy a place with one good person on it, right? We got Sodom and Gomorrah story. We got, the flood with Noah. He took Enoch out, but he didn't have to experience any of this stuff. Flood happens, everything gets wiped out, and we get, the society has to get rebuilt. And then we know that some of these Nephilim somehow survived. And again, they must have been an offshoot or spread out as well, because it goes on into the Old Testament, the Old Testament, how God went around and killed them all again, right? The ones that were doing bad. And it's fast forward until today. these creatures, these beings, they're still here. They're just underground. And I'll tell you why, right? If you read the Bible, you'll see the words I showed mentioned to you here, man. Mighty men, men of old, men of renown, right? When you hear that in the Bible, they're talking about the Nephilim. You go and read the book of Revelations. In the book of Revelations, talks about the battle at Armageddon and the birds feasting on the bodies of men and mighty men. So you know that these Nephilim have somehow down the road will make a return onto the earth. It's just in the scriptures, right? And then a lot of people will tell you that they're underground. Several stories I've covered, several stories, right? Where I've covered where they've actually talked about encountering these giants like in these caves and stuff like that, right? So I think they're here already. I think they're waiting for the right opportunity to make an appearance. I think that they're probably, when we talk about these vast underground, multi-trillion-dollar domes that are scattered all across the earth, I think these are what they are, creatures that are living in there. When you hear about these dogmen, these cryptids, I think these Nephilim are the ones that are creating them and cutting them loose in our parks and stuff like that. Again, that's what we talk about on this channel, guys. It all gets tied back together. But yeah, so that is where it's at. And that is exactly, what is probably, or it has to happen because the scriptures are going to say it's going to happen towards the end. Even again, and Muslims don't even argue with this because Gog and Magog in the book of, in the Muslim stories, they're giants. They're a race of giants that come down every day and touch this, this wall. They hit a wall and it cracks, but it heals. And they talk about how one day they hit that wall and it cracks and it breaks. And that's when Gog and Magog are escaped, to attack, the world. And if you go and read, in the book of Revelations, they talk about Gog and Magog as well. But they want you to think that it's Turkey or Russia. It's not. It's Nephilim. It's something crazy. It's something big, right? And that's why I tell people as well, as a Christian, you should read at least the Torah is already our Old Testament, right? And so if you've read, the Bible at all, then you've already read the Torah. So right? The Torah is just the Old Testament minus the book of Daniel because they reject the book of Daniel because the book of Daniel accurately predicts when the birth of Jesus Christ happens, right? Daniel was taken off. He became, I think it was Nebuchadnezzar, and he was in Babylon. But it talks about how he was given, authority, or he became the king or the lead magi. He was in charge of all the magi. And if you go and you read, these stories about how the three wise men or the three magi or the three kings show up looking for Jesus' birth, they're following the book of Daniel, Daniel's prophecies. They knew where to go, what time to do it. That's why they went to Herod, the king of the Jews, because he was like, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. They're like, you don't know? Well, where is he, right? He's like, hey, if you find this guy, come back. Because the Jews reject the book of Daniel. Because they reject the divinity of Christ, right? This is the fact. And so when they go and see Jesus, that they're warned by an angel, hey, don't go back that way, go this way. It's a whole nother story right there, but it's kind of relevant to, Christmas coming up. But that's all it is, right? So if you've ever read the Old Testament, you've read the Torah. And if you've read the New Testament, you've read the Christian version of it. But you should also go and read the Quran, because the Quran has some interesting crossover in there as well. And if you should be secure enough in your faith not to, shy away. Most Jews won't read the New Testament. They're scared of it. I don't know why. They just won't do it, right? Muslims won't read the New Testament as well. I don't know why. They just won't do it. I'm a firm believer, if your faith is strong enough, then a book's not going to hurt you, right? And you'd be surprised at how many atheists, Jews, and Muslims become Christians reading the New Testament, trying to disprove Jesus, and they end up becoming Christians at the end. There's like hundreds of books that you can go out there, and good testimonies on YouTube as well. But yes, you should go read it because it's good for, even from like I said, even from a historical standpoint, the more you know, the better. I watch a lot of G.I. Joe, right? So anyways, in closing here, I'm going to tell you the list of the things that the Watchers created. We talked about this before, about the Fae folk, right? And it was actually very, very detailed, right? And what it is so, and it was broken down into categories, right? They created what they called the Fae, the fair folk, the good people. And so this was just a list of them. I'm going to run it down real quick and we'll wrap you out of here, man. Fairies, side highs, I don't even know what those are, man. Elves, light elves, dark elves, high elves, right? Dryads, hamadryads, naiads, nereids, oridars, sylphs, undines, salamanders, green men, and Alashe, right? Like I said, I don't even know what half the stuff is that they supposedly created and named, right? Then they had the brownies, hobgoblins, dominovans, kobolds, lars, bogies, pucks, robin, goodfellow, redcaps, springans, bogarts, knockers, will-o'-the-wisp. You know, some people were telling me, I'm sorry, I just got a thought there. It happens to me sometimes. You ever see those orbs? People send you videos of orbs that are just drifting through the forest or just drifting around, like, and they try to tell you it's swamp gas. And if you go up into western North Carolina, they talk about these brown mountain lights. I wonder if those are actually wisps, like will-o'-wisp, right? That they talk about that were created a long time ago, like just like a fae. And they're described the exact same way as like these just floating balls of like light. So you have pixies and all this other stuff, man. And then you had like, the list just goes on and on and on and on, man. Goblins, trolls, ogres, dwarves, and gnomes, aka duendes, aka pugwudgies. There's a lot of them. I just don't feel like reading all of them. There's a whole bunch of them in there if you guys want to go and if you're that interested into it. Pugwudgies, duendes, gnomes, leprechauns, small folk, you name it. All of it is attributed to the Watchers and their sons doing these experiments or these, you know, animal-human hybrid things. And they supposedly not all were evil, but same thing. What's going on, buddy? Hi there, Semjaza. If I pronounced that right, man. Sorry, man, I can't pronounce that name. It's a strong name there. But anyways, guys, that's the story. That's what happened. So again, I apologize. Maybe I should have let off with the Nephilim episode before I did the Watchers episode. But now you know what the Watchers are, what the Nephilim are, and now you know the whole story and the whole lineage of, you know, how everything breaks down and how everything connects and how everything comes together, right? It's a great read. It's the Book of Giants. It's not actually in the Book of Enoch. It's called the Book of Giants. It references, directly ties to the Book of Enoch, though. It was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it's a really good read. If you want to get that, right, the best way to get it is, if it's over my shoulder, it's over that side over there. The complete 54 Apocrypha, right? And you can get it on Amazon. It's a great read. It has all the books of the Bible that were taken out, you know, and from the King James Bible, or if you're just really hardcore. And it's got some other good books in there as well, like the Book of Jubilees and stuff like that. We can read into it as well. So that's the most important thing to know. And again, a lot of people have reached out to me and asked me my question about the women that these Watchers mated with to create the Nephilim. There's no names I could find. I could not find any names whatsoever of the women that were taken by the Watchers, or willingly. They weren't taken. They actually went willingly and married the Watchers and gave birth to these Nephilim. The names aren't there. What's going on, Serbia? Oh, nice to meet you, bro. Checking all the way in over there. But there's no list for that to happen. But there is reference that part of their punishment for willingly going with the Watchers, they were turned into sirens or, you know, mermaids, and they were doomed to, or, you know, cursed to, you know, live inside the water, you know, the oceans and stuff like that, right? But I couldn't find it. And again, people have reached out again telling me that Semjaza's wife, her name was Lilith. I can't find it. Again, I cannot find it. I looked for it. I know that Lilith was a thing, but I could not find any type of manuscript whatsoever tying Lilith directly to being Semjaza's wife. Yes, he's real. Yes, she's real. But I couldn't find anything connected to the dots, man. So I'm sorry about that, guys. I just can't Can't go down that rabbit hole until I find something to read and tie into a little bit more. But if you have it, you can leave it in the description of the video, man, and then we'll just go from there. But guys, that's all I got for you tonight, man. Good 45 minutes. I hope everybody's having a wonderful Christmas holidays across the whole entire world, from Serbia to wherever you're at out there seeing these videos, Rumble as well. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if there'll be an episode next Thursday or not, because I think that's actually Christmas Eve, and I know you guys don't want to spend it with my ugly mug, so you'll be able to hang out there with your family. I will post something up probably Monday or Tuesday on the community section, letting everybody know what we got, or if we're going to, you know, giving everybody a heads up on that. So guys, again, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for hanging out on Rumble. Thanks for hanging out over here on freaking YouTube, you guys. I really appreciate you. Have a Merry, Merry, Merry Christmas. And I will see everybody when we fire it back up in a week or maybe a little bit longer. Until then, you guys, you know how we do around here, nerds. That's all you get for $1. And we're out.
Subscribe now and turn on the notifications to join us on this extraordinary journey into the unknown.